Well, we're kind of moving along a little bit. You ended up being the manager of the GTOs.
Oh, yes.
So could you so the
Yeah, so tell us a bit about that. How that came to be.
There you are.
That's me with them, yes. And there's more, aren't there? More pictures. But yes, well, Frank, these girls were freaks. They weren't really freaks, but they those two at the front, they were normal girls who just dressed up. These two at the beginning.
Okay.
At the front, that was Sparky and Pamela. But the others, these wow, they were really freaks, and they did live off the street. And Frank brought them in and turned them into a group called the GTOs, where they couldn't sing. And it was my job to make them rehearse. They had to write their own songs. And then we had to get musicians in to help them. Lowell George came in, Rod Stewart came in and sang on one of them. And it was my job to get them to the rehearsals and to, they drove me ragged, really, because I had no idea what I was handling, did I? I mean, for example, in the car going to the TV studio, they got an audition for one of the top TV shows. And in the car, she was sniffing like this in the back of the back seat. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing, Cinderella?" She said, "Oh, it's my smelling salts, Pauline." So I said, "Smelling salts?" I thought they went out with my grandmother. So when we got to the studio, I said to her, "Cinderella, why don't you take your smelling salts before you go on?" Because you don't want to be sniffing when you're being interviewed. Oh, so anyway, we got home. And I got a phone call from Gail, because by that time I was living up the street. And she said, "Frank wants to see you, get in here." And he was the only time he ever lost his temper with me. He was so mad. He said, "What do you mean telling people to take cocaine in the studio, Cinderella?" And I said, "Oh, cocaine, I didn't realize." Oh, she said it was smelling salts. I believed her. And that's how absurd it was for me. I was a cog, totally out of place in the place, which in a way helped me to write the book, because I was out of place, and so I could see it differently.
Do you still talk to any of them today?
Most of them have died. Marcy died a couple of years ago. She just finished her memoir. Pamela is still alive, and so is Sparky. Pamela, she cut me off once I wrote my book. I don't know why, but I always praised her own books, because her book, I'm with the Band, has been a bestseller for years. And she's always on all the programs and everything. And so I've always praised her and her books, but for some reason she did not like it. And she hasn't said anything about my book anywhere ever. And when I wrote my play, I wrote a play about Frank and Gail in London in 1975, when he was there for a court case. She was absolutely antagonistic about that and said I had no right to do it. So it's very odd. I don't understand it. But there you are. She's writing about all these rock stars and their private parts. And I'm writing a very innocent play about Frank Zappa. Oh dear, so I don't know. I don't quite understand it. Never mind, it's not worth worrying about, really.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. It's interesting how after that amount of time, how things end up going.
Yes. Well, he thought they were all going to marry electricians and plumbers and things, and they all ended up marrying rock stars. So he was totally wrong about that.